Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to the county seat. I'm Terry Wood in for Chad Booth on this beautiful Sunday morning. You know, county government is perhaps the form of government that has the greatest impact on our daily lives, but it may also be the one we know the least about. And in those county governments, one position that we probably know even less about is the county auditor. Well, we're going to meet some county auditors today, and we find out exactly how they do their job. But first, Derek Dowsett takes a look at these guardians of the county who watch out for both the public's financial interest and the county's financial interest. Here's Derek.
The county auditor performs a number of fiscal-related services for both the county and the state. You're probably most familiar with them when they send you out these two pieces of mail, your valuation notice in July and the actual tax bill in October. Hopefully you don't receive the third piece, because that means you're late on paying your property tax.
The county will send out 3 notices in a year: a valuation notice in July saying what the projected taxes are to be, the actual tax notice in October, and then if people don't pay in November, by the end of November, they'll get a delinquent notice in February.
Delinquencies on property tax are rare and only affect less than 1% of the population. But if you are behind, the most important thing to do is to contact the county and figure out a solution. Counties are willing to work with residents, but doing nothing can have some dramatic and dire consequences.
The longer you wait, there's more interest, penalty, and fees that end up being assessed. We, by statute, have to sell property that has outstanding balances once they're at 5 years. So if there are problems and issues that we have to work for and people wait until a week before the sale, then it really cuts down the window by which we can do the due diligence.
The tax sale is different from a bankruptcy or foreclosure.
It's the government seizing and selling property versus when a bank or a private entity is seizing and selling property that they have a lien against. So we have a much higher requirement for notification, making sure that everything is done correctly.
Organizing the May tax sale is only one function of a county auditor out of a number of hats that they wear, with the most important function of the job being?
That's a pretty hard one to say that because they're so distinct. I would probably say that overall, the role where we represent the citizens as an independent, I guess, guardian, you could say, of the finances and the controls of the county, that's probably the most important, because there you're truly representing directly the citizens.
A county commission holds both legislative and executive powers, so it is the county auditor that serves as the check and balance on the powers of the commission, and because those officials are elected by you, there is accountability to the public.
It's not one of the forefront offices where you're constantly on the front page or you're constantly talking to the press. It's more of behind the scenes, and citizens just aren't aware. And we want to make them aware because I think they would get some comfort knowing that somebody is there taking a look at the finances and making sure that the money doesn't leak out along the way. The primary thing that we're looking at is proper use of funds, making sure that there's no fraud, waste, or abuse.
There are 3 sources that auditors typically use to keep the county honest to the taxpayer.
We do receive tips, and in fact, that's the #1 way to catch fraud, waste, and abuse is by tips from citizens or from employees. And so we do receive and follow up on tips from them. However, we do have an audit plan in place that continues on throughout the year, where we take a look at the different departments and organizations within the county. And sometimes we have department heads saying, please come in, I have a question about this, or I want to be comfortable that my controls are functioning as planned. So it's kind of a mix between citizens, our own audit planning, and other elected officials.
The biggest challenge for county auditors is to provide the highest level of service to the taxpayer without increasing taxes.
And so we have to find ways to account for inflation without dinging the taxpayer. And we do that by being more efficient, by using technology, and by trying to do more with less, really.
So now when you hear about the county auditor referred to as the guardian of the county, you know they are there to guard your interests as a citizen in making sure that tax dollars are spent properly. For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Well, thank you, Derek. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the budget officer of the county. We're going to meet 3 of them. We'll be back after this.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
It's one more, here we go again. I tell myself I'm not in love, but one more time is not enough. One last kiss and then you were gone, and I'm here wishing you could stay a little longer. Stay a little longer. Wishing you could stay a little longer.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a rather interesting program for you today because we know that the job we're talking about is not one of the ones that people know a whole lot about, including me. We're going to find out today. Let me introduce our guest. Starting from the far end down here is Karla Johnson. She's the Clerk Auditor of Kane County. Ricky Hatch is the Clerk Auditor of Weber County. And Brandy Grace is the Auditor of Millard County. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. I notice as we say your titles, 2 of you are clerk auditors, and you're just an auditor.
I'm just an auditor.
What's the difference between a clerk auditor and an auditor?
The clerk auditor has 2 elected positions. They're the county clerk and the county auditor, and they have the combined responsibilities of both.
Does that mean you have to run for election twice?
No.
You work twice as hard?
If it's legally combined in your county, you run for one position, a combined.
Some counties have opted to merge the 2 offices. The majority of counties are merged, but there are probably 5 or 6 counties, I believe, that have those 2 offices separated.
Yeah, so in Millard County, there's also a county clerk.
You represent 3 different size counties. Kane County with a little more than 7,000 people. Weber County, one of the larger counties in Utah. Millard, you've got a little more than 12,000 people. Does this make the function of your job different at all? The size of your county?
Well, I'll just say, I think there are differences, and I think, I don't know, my personal opinion is in Millard County, I think that because we don't have the resources and maybe the larger staff, for example, in Millard County, I've taken on the responsibility of some of the HR duties where most counties would have an HR representative, and I fill that role in Millard County. I think that in a lot of the smaller counties, that elected office takes on some of those additional responsibilities.
Oh, so you do work twice as hard.
Absolutely.
And what about you two in the little bit larger counties?
Well, in the large county, it's probably, like Brandy said, it's probably, I'm not quite as hands-on with a lot of the details as she would be. I have staff, I have a comptroller, I have a chief deputy, I have an elections director, which allows me to step back and look more at a higher level direction and how to remove hurdles for my staff, and not necessarily get down into the details quite as often, which sometimes I miss.
And Karla, you're in a smaller county. Are you hands-on?
I'm even in a smaller county, and I additionally have I'm the clerk of the court as well. So I have the district court in my office. So I have even more broad-ranging duties. But I'll tell a little story about Ricky.
Yeah.
When he first came in and we were discussing auditor duties during a training session, you know, we talked about some different things, and as I said some comments about different areas, he said, so how do you know that's how it actually works? And I said, because I'm actually hands-on doing it. And so when he needs more hands-on, he calls me. When I need more of an overview of what's going on, I call him, And we have a real good symbiotic relationship in the state. As elected officials and our clerk auditors or auditors, we work really close together. We've got a unique group and we all help each other. The workload in the clerk auditor's office is a really high level workload, so we really support one another.
That's interesting. You contact each other no matter the size of the county just for advice, professional opinion, etc. You were telling me earlier, Karla, that and you alluded to this a second ago, that you have many duties, that the auditor actually wears 3 hats in your position.
We do.
Explain that.
Well, part of it comes from where we derive our authority. For one hat, we're the objective expert financial advisor is the term for it. And we work directly under the legislative body for that. We derive our authority from the citizens to the legislative body and then to us. And in there, we're things like budget officer, CFO, comptroller, and part of the performance auditor jobs. And that's another hat that we wear. We're a performance auditor, we're a citizens investigative auditor, and that's our auditor hat. Mm-hmm. And then we also carry the 3rd hat, which is our property tax administration hat. And for that hat, we derive our authority directly from the citizens. So the citizens investigative auditor comes directly from the citizens, tax administrative directly from the citizens, and part of the performance auditor. The rest goes through the legislative body to us. So we also have a split jurisdiction.
And you each wear those 3 hats in each size county, right?
That's correct.
Sometimes you have to wear 2 hats at the same time and it gets a little hairy.
That would be an interesting picture. I'd like to see it on your campaign posters. Do you also, a county also embodies a city too. You have Ogden City in Weber County. Do you ever get involved in the city financial matters, or is it all strictly the outlying areas of the county?
Well, the city's an independent legislative body. It's an independent governmental entity granted or created by the state, just like the county is. So we are independent in that area. We do work together, the commission and the mayor's office, as well as several other areas. The city recorder works a lot with our clerk's office. There is a lot of overlap and cooperation there, but in the area of financial management, it tends to be standalone. Each one works separately.
Do you ever run into those problems where you're dealing with politicians in another area of the county government? I know Salt Lake County's had a few clashes with the auditor. Do you run into those type of problems in your counties?
Oh, I think there's a bit of that goes on. Just thinking of an example, economic development issues. Sometimes, the county and the city are either aligned or they have different interests. But also I was going to add to Murky's comments about not only the cities, but we have special service districts within our communities, and they provide essential functions to our citizens as well. And oftentimes they're a smaller organization, and oftentimes I think the county auditors are involved in helping them through particularly the property tax administration part of establishing their tax rates and helping them through that process. So I do think we're pretty involved.
I would echo that. We're a small county. We have some very small towns. One has a budget of about $20,000 for their whole year. So
many times they're volunteers.
And they are volunteers. And so when they need some help, they often come to the county clerk auditor for help. And we help them. It's in the best interest because we represent all the citizens of the county. We don't have their tax dollars responsibility, but we do have a responsibility to help because that's what our taxpayers, they want us to help government run smoothly and stay out of their hair and do it economically and honestly.
Is stay out of their hair, huh?
Stay out of their hair.
Because most people, when they hear the word the auditors coming in, that causes their hair to stand up on end right there. Do you run into those type of problems?
Well, fortunately, as county auditor, we don't ever go out and audit the citizens themselves. It's mostly looking within the government, kind of shining a flashlight, make sure there's nothing hiding, nothing that really the citizens wouldn't approve of if they knew about it.
That's your investigative hat, right?
And that's really comes from the fact that everybody has the right in their own home to review every bit of income coming in. Are they getting the most for their time? Review everything going out. You know, they check their power bill, they check the water bill. Whatever they have coming in and going out, they have complete investigative ability. And when they pay their taxes, they don't lose that ability.
They give it to us.
They give it to us, and we do it.
And that's why they call
sorry.
you the guardians of the county.
That's right.
We're going to talk about truth and taxation when we come back.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to three of the county auditors from around the state today, from Kane County, from Weber County, and from Millard County. Now, there's a term you've probably heard. It's called truth and taxation. Wonderful term right there, but it's actually a process. And it's a function of your offices, isn't it? What is truth and taxation?
Well, it was passed back in 1986 by the state legislature. It's a process that basically determines, it requires any taxing entity that's going to increase their tax rates, they have to notify the public. And there is a specific set of rules that they have to follow to make sure that the notice is adequate so that the public can provide their input before the tax takes place.
So what do you do when what's your involvement in the process?
Well, when a taxing entity through their budgeting process recognizes the need to increase their taxes, there are advertising requirements, public hearing requirements, and we assist them through that process to make sure that the deadlines are met. Otherwise, it's very strict criteria. If the deadlines are not met and held in a timely manner, then they're not eligible to impose a tax increase.
And you're nodding your head too, Karla.
Yes, it's really, those deadlines are critical when you've got a budget that you need to adopt for specific reasons. It's really critical that that timing is done right, and that it's timed within the disclosure notices or the tax valuation notices that the auditors do. We send out that notice in July to all of the taxpayers with the value of their property and what the difference would be if there is a tax increase or without.
Do you ever think twice when you've got to get those advertisements out that, hey, we're going to raise your taxes, public? Do you ever think, boy, I wish I didn't have to write this?
Yeah, no one wants to do that. It's kind of that's kind of political suicide if you have to raise taxes. And so, fortunately, that's the policymakers that have to make that decision. We just facilitate the process. We make sure that the public's notified and provide the support to the policymakers to make sure that they have all the support they need so they can explain why they need the tax increase.
Now, you're also involved in the long-term budgeting process too, which would seem to take a bit of clairvoyance. How do you look into the future and tell what your needs are going to be years down the line?
Well, specifically, as we look into that, you look back at the history, several years in the past, and look at what the expenditures or revenue has been over the past several years, and then also for long-term planning, capital projects that may need to take place, improvements to public facilities, those type of things that you plan for and set money aside for in hopes to provide good financial planning to keep the counties financially stable.
Do you take into account some unforeseen factors too, like?
Well, PILT was a big issue this year, whether or not we would get PILT. And that's a large...
Payment in lieu of taxes from the federal government.
Yes, payment in lieu of taxes. And it's a large portion of our overall budget for our general fund. So it is of a concern, but we've been using that risk analysis, and we involve everybody. So for the last 3 years, we've known that PILT was a little unstable. So in our budgeting process, we do our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, the same thing that you do in business, we do in the county, and we evaluate those and then set a budget based on long-term, if this doesn't come through, what are our options, and we plan and budget for it. And we look 5 years out, 10 years out, and if you do long-term budget bonding, of course, you look even further than that.
And the bottom line really is, in good times, you're conservative. Save some, don't plan on unnecessary funds or funds that are only one time, and so that when the bad times come, you're prepared.
You know, you have some challenges with drought in the state of Utah, and you even had a big fire in Millard County a few years ago. Does that, how do you work this into your budget?
No, Terry, that's really interesting. We talk about the different hats and some of the different responsibilities that we as auditors take on. That is an example of one. The Clay Springs Fire Recovery Efforts, that is a grant that I'm managing to help with flood mitigation, and so that was about a $5 million project that I've overseen to help the citizens in that area.
And then you explain that to the general public that there's nothing we can do about these acts of nature.
Yes. But you know, even at that point, it's like that grant that Brandy's talking about. There's EWP projects through FEMA and all kinds of financial aid that goes through the county auditor, and you're either the manager or you're working with them for, you know, at any given time, you can fluctuate or double your budget.
Well, we'll come back in just a moment and we'll find out some of these more intricate aspects of the auditor's job. We'll be back right after this.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls? Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River? No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
149 million years in the making. Dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
The Layton Hills Mall offers more than just shopping. Bring the whole family and enjoy SeaQuest Interactive Aquarium to feed the fish and exotic birds, hold live reptiles, and even swim with the stingrays. Or pump up the action and visit Dartside, Utah's premier soft foam dart tag arena. And don't forget the Great Room Escape, where you can challenge your friends to solving mysteries inside themed rooms. So come and experience great fun at the Layton Hills Mall and visit playindavis.com for other great activities.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about the functions, the duties, the job of county auditor today. And while we were in our break there, we were just talking a minute ago about some of the misconceptions the public has about the auditor's office. And some of these are pretty interesting. Tell us what you think the biggest misconceptions are.
One of the things that I believe the public sometimes doesn't really understand is that oftentimes we'll hear people think that we work under the direction of the commission, and they don't really realize that we're an independent elected office. And although we work very closely with the commission, we're independent of the commission. So.
Another common misconception is they think county auditor means that we're auditing all the time, and we actually do other things, tax administration, we do the budget officer roles, but we do a lot of audits, and sometimes those audits result in formal official reports with findings and recommendations, and sometimes they're more on a consultative basis where we're working with the departments and saying, look, from a controls perspective, this would make better sense. This is a better safeguard for the taxpayer dollars.
Karla?
We just try to resolve problems before they ever arise. We have policies and we audit those policies to keep honest people honest.
Would that be in those formal official reports you were talking about there, Ricky? And are those made available to the public when you do write a report like that?
Certainly. The formal reports are placed sometimes on the website, but certainly done in a commission meeting or made available to the county executive.
Terry, as an example, as you can imagine, in county government there are a lot of different functions, volunteer things, a lot of different activities that the county actually hosts. And as the auditor, one of the things that I found most valuable is being able to interact with a lot of our volunteers or committee members as they may be collecting money, ticket sales type things, you know, different things like that, where there's actually county money coming in, but they don't have the background or the know-how of really what needs to take place there. And so the county auditor is involved in directing them on how to collect those fees that, that ultimately are reported to the county.
So you're out there at all these charitable events too, and we
Very
always
involved.
see the commissioners or the county council or the county mayor. You see the big name politicians out and about at all hours, but not many people see the auditor.
We're
do
a little
they?
bit behind the scenes, just making sure that things come in the way that they should and that it's accounted for.
It's our job to work with everybody to make sure that everything's done properly. And we feel like that's really a sacred trust that the citizens have entrusted us with, and we take it seriously in Utah.
I guess everyone in Kane County knows you, don't they, Karla?
Most of them do, and I know most of them.
And are you a little more anonymous in Weber County, Ricky?
Yeah, I go shopping and no one notices.
You're lucky.
And what about you, Brandy?
I would say most people would know who I am in the community. It's pretty common, but I enjoy it when you're out and about. People recognize who you are, but I enjoy that. I enjoy the interaction with the citizens and the.
I have to echo that. I think that's been the best part about being an elected official is the opportunity to interact with the people. It is really the part that makes this job worth doing.
Well, they're your neighbors. They're your friends?
They're our neighbors. They're our friends. They put their money in our care and keeping and trust us with it.
And I guess that's why they call you the guardians of the county, because you have to look out for the citizens and the county, and then you wear all these other hats at the same time, too.
That's right, Terry.
Well, it's been interesting. I tell you, I've learned a lot about this today, and I admitted when I began the program, I didn't know how many hats the county auditor wore. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching today. I'm Terry Wood.